So let's continue with Aristotle's list of virtues. And the next one on the list is proper ambition. And there's not too much to say about this virtue on its own. I do want to, once we'll refer back to proper pride, and I think once we have good temper on the table, these three virtues tie together pretty closely. Um, but proper ambition for Aristotle, in and of itself, is just being ambitious enough. Not overly ambitious, but being just ambitious enough. Probably for Aristotle, closer to being too ambitious. Now, one thing to note for Aristotle, I think it is important to keep in mind with proper ambition, is that proper ambition is an ambition for something excellent, right? The ambitious person wants things that really are good, that are worthy of respect. Um, if you were ambitious for something just foolish or not worth wanting, Aristotle wouldn't think that was proper ambition. If your ambition was to be famous, no matter what the reason for being famous, Aristotle would just say, that's dumb, right? That's not proper ambition. Proper ambition is to want to really accomplish excellent or good things. Remember, this ties back to what he said about, pursuit of honor or fame. It's only good fame or honor is as a recognition for real accomplishments. And so proper ambition should be more concerned with those accomplishments than it is any kind of recognition or honors attached to them. Good temper. So Aristotle will say that good temper is a mean between what he calls irascibility, that is, being a hothead, getting too angry, and an unnamed vice. He doesn't think the deficiency of anger has a name. We might call it something like just being a doormat, right? Letting people walk all over you. And now Aristotle will say, and I think we probably agree with him, that good temper is closer to the vice of never getting angry. You know, person of good temper is going to be self-controlled, and of course human nature just kind of inclines in the direction of getting too angry. So the virtue of good temper will look more like the vice of never getting angry. But you want to be careful here. Aristotle will not say that it is a virtue never to get angry. The virtue of good temper is not, for Aristotle at least, by any means a matter of never getting angry. In fact, Aristotle would say to never get angry is a vice. Well, why is that? Why would it be a vice to never get angry? Well, here I think you can see the links between good temper and the virtues of proper pride and even proper ambition, right? Look, if you never got angry, that would show a deficiency of proper pride. It would show a deficiency of self-respect. If you let people walk all over you, well, you probably have a really low opinion of yourself in some regard, right? Or it might show a defect, it might show a lack in courage, right? You might be afraid to ever get angry. And think of it this way, it would be bad for you never to get angry, or so says Aristotle, right? If you never stick up for yourself, that's not going to be good for your life as a whole. You're going to let people run over you. You're going to be a doormat. And think of it in this way too, right? Sometimes standing up for the right thing involves getting angry, or being angry might help you do it, right? If you see someone else being treated badly, unfairly, well, if you don't get angry about it, if you just kind of shrug your shoulders and are like, meh, well, it's a pretty good indication you don't care about that unfairness, that injustice in the way you should. So I think Aristotle has good reasons for this. But one thing I want you to note is that Aristotle is pretty far from this idea that still has a lot of currency in our culture, that anger is bad. Aristotle, the idea that one should turn the other cheek, that would be entirely alien to him, right? And look, maybe he is too comfortable with anger. I don't know. But the idea that it is somehow a virtue never to get angry, that it is a virtue to turn the other cheek when someone does something bad to you, that is very alien to Aristotle's mindset. Now again, he has some reasons for this. I don't think he's crazy, but again, this might just be a cultural difference. It is, for better or worse, a very sort of macho culture that he was in. We might not like this. We might think that he builds up anger a bit too much. We might think that it's way closer to the vice of never getting angry than Aristotle thinks. He seems to think it's somewhere almost in the middle, but maybe just a little bit more toward the vice of never getting angry. We might put it a lot closer. Honesty. Now, honesty, wit, and friendliness, the last three virtues I'm going to talk about in Aristotle's list, are all in their way kind of weird. Now, honesty in and of itself, it's not weird that Aristotle lists it as a virtue. Most of us would say, I think, that honesty is a virtue. What is weird about honesty is that it doesn't seem like a natural fit within Aristotle's doctrine of the mean. You know, it would be really weird if you said, well, honesty is just lying enough but not too much. You know, it's a vice to lie too much, but it's also a vice not to lie enough. That's not how people define honesty, right? I'm tempted to make a joke about lawyers here, but no good ones occur to me. But that's not even how lawyers define honesty, right? Okay. So what does Aristotle say about this? He actually tries to, in a weird way, shoehorn this into the doctrine of the mean, and his discussion is just honestly kind of bizarre. He says, well, honesty is a matter of not boasting too much about yourself, but not being too modest about yourself. That does not by any means seem to be the whole of honesty. Honesty seems to be more than that. Now look, I think that one could make honesty, it doesn't fit quite as well as the others, but I think you could make it fit within the doctrine of the mean, and it might not do so very badly. It might actually do okay. Think of it this way. Is it a virtue to always be completely honest, to tell every truth that you happen to know? No, of course not. What does that sound like? That sounds like a child, right? Children are infamous for going out and blabbing every single truth that they might know. You know, when they meet Aunt Jane or Uncle Bob, they say, Mommy said your dress doesn't look good. Or, Mommy said your comb over's fooling nobody, right? Mom might have said that. It's not good that kids are that honest, right? So maybe I think there's a case to be made that honesty might be a mean between being too truthful and being dishonest, but it would probably be very, very, very close, almost all the way over to being too truthful, right? Not quite there, but very close. So Aristotle gives it a weird treatment, doesn't fit within the doctrine of the mean as well as some other virtues, but I think it could maybe fit okay. So wit. Wit is odd as a virtue. So why do I say that? Well, when Aristotle talks about wit, he means something more like sense of humor than he does intelligence. You know, a witty person makes jokes, a witty person gets other people's jokes, right? Well, now look. What's odd about wit, what's odd about Aristotle making it a virtue, is that I think it seems odd to us to think that having a sense of humor or not is really a moral matter. Humorless people aren't very fun, but I think we blame them in a different way than we blame people for sort of moral failings, right? If if I say Jimmy is a pathological liar, you can't trust him, he'll lie to your face just for the fun of it. That seems a way harsher judgment. That seems a moral judgment more properly than does, yeah, Jimmy's got no sense of humor, man. You make a joke, it just goes right over his head. Just, just dull, right? Just never heard him crack a joke himself, and every joke you make just sails right over his head. I don't think we would blame somebody in the same way for being humorless, for being witless in Aristotle's sense, that we would for being dishonest, or for being a coward, or for being stingy, right? Wit, maybe it seems more like a skill to us than a virtue, right? It's good to have, but is it really morally important? I don't know. Um, I think one lesson to draw from this is that Aristotle's idea of what is morally important, not Aristotle's virtues, might not map onto our own idea of morality perfectly. So wit, I don't know. I'm tempted to myself, if I were drawing up a list of virtues, I'm not sure that wit would be on the list. It's nice to have. I'm not sure it's really a moral virtue. Final virtue I want to talk about on this list is friendliness. Friendliness, the ability to be, friendly with other people. Um, Again, this seems like maybe a slightly odd virtue. I'm not sure we would blame people for lacking this. Um, I do think one reason that Aristotle wants to put friendliness and wit on the list is that part of his idea of virtues, remember, one of the things that makes the virtues important is that they make possible good relationships with other people. They enable good relationships with other people. And so I think, given that, I think we can see, even if we might not be inclined to agree with Aristotle, and I'm not on the virtues of wit and friendliness, we can see why he puts them on the list. Okay, so that's all for these virtues. In the next series, or in the next lecture, I want to talk about the virtue of justice, to say maybe some things about some possible virtues Aristotle left off the list.